And welcome back on Take Action News on this, our last segment of the show, as always, my How It Should Be segment. For this week, Saturday, March 23rd, we have a special How It Should Be segment, and my How It Should Be will take the form of an interview. That's right, earlier this week I had the privilege of interviewing the senior senator from Ohio, Sherrod Brown, about his initiative to end too big to fail banks. How it should be, there should be no banks that are too big to fail. And welcome back on Take Action News. This is Daniel Marin's executive producer. I'm talking right now with the senior senator from Ohio, Senator Sherrod Brown. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Sure, glad to be with you. Thanks.
Senator, I'm here to talk with you today about the issue of too big to fail banks and legislation that you're working on to end that idea, the idea that banks are so large that the risk it would cause of their collapse to the economy, that risk is so large that the government would have to bail them out, which means that they are free to essentially take risks at our expense. What legislation are you working on that would change? Why legislation change that?
Well, there's a couple of ideas. I think that the problem is increasingly obvious to more and more people in Washington, as it's been for some time around the country, that these banks get advantages on the capital markets because of their size and because investors simply understand that these banks, that the government will protect these banks in the end. The government will bail them out if there's a problem. You can see that with actions recently, the Attorney General, where the Attorney General is, by and large, said that if you attempt to think about prosecuting, make an effort to start prosecuting any of these big banks, that it could have an impact on the financial, it could have a negative impact on the financial system. So what we want to do is a couple of things, and we want to increase capital standards for these large banks, which will help mitigate some of the risk. And we think the banks are simply not just too big to fail. They're too large to manage. They're too complex to regulate. We've seen an increasing number of examples where bank management simply hasn't had the understanding they need of their own institutions because of their size and their complexity and their interconnectedness.